You're watching the Anthony Chan Zero. Coming up next is a review of our next digital night vision device, the NVG30, the successor to the NVG10. While this is a review about the NVG30, I will be comparing it to its nearby competitor, the Nightfox Prowl. Like before, I will go over its dimensions, settings, and built-in IR emitter. Then, with some unique POV shots, I can hopefully demonstrate to you why I believe its lens makes the NVG30 annoying and difficult to recommend. Welcome! In this current season of Tactical Taco, our quest to find a good digital night vision device continues. In last month's episode, I covered the Nightfox Prowl, which I believe is the baseline for affordable DNV. Its low costs, easy use, wide applications, and included accessories make the Nightfox Prowl very handy for the first-time DNV explorer. But it is held back by a number of issues, including its wide shape, its weak USB card cover, and its 2005 webcam quality electronic viewfinder. Naturally, this question will be asked. For a little more money, can we do better? Is there a better Nightfox Prowl out there? The answer is a bit more complicated than simply buying an NVG30. But before I go into more detail, let's start at the beginning. You're watching the Anthony Chan Zero. Coming up next is a review. If this is your first time hearing about digital night vision, welcome. The short version is simply this. It's hard to see at night. So there are these cameras that can help enhance the range you can see at night. Some people like digital night vision and some don't. But the choice ends up depending on a few factors, mainly your budget, your use, and your level of training. So for the person who is curious about night vision but not ready to spend thousands of dollars on equipment, accessories, gear, and training, digital is the perfect starting line. I'll talk more about why DNV in another video though. Today, this is the NVG30, and this is its dimensions. And here it is compared to the Nightfox Prowl. You can see the NVG30 addresses most of the exterior issues I had with the Nightfox Prowl. Firstly, it's thinner, which means you can actually use two NVG30s properly, as you can see in this demonstration where the Prowl and NVG30 can be much closer together than by using two Prowls. This was achievable by not having two emitters. The 18650 battery compartment is a separate compartment with a screw-on gasketed cap, similar to that of a Sordine Supreme, except the cap is smooth. This lack of texture could make it more difficult to change a battery in the field, especially when it's wet, cold, or dark. The friction cover for the USB-C port and microSD card fits very tightly and deeply against the housing and feels great. It seems very unlikely to come loose during operation. Binock's website says the NVG30 is rated IPX7, and then the manual it came with says IP67. I won't be testing waterproofing today though. Speaking of inconsistencies, when it comes to the dimension and weight, both the manual and the box don't agree with each other. But that's not exactly unexpected, because when it comes to the waterproof rating, the box doesn't even agree with itself. The way the friction cover was done causes a problem. The microSD card slot is not only upside down, but the access port is too small to eject the card with fingers only. meaning that tweezers are needed to remove the SD card. You can still retrieve files using the USB-C port, but this is a notable flaw in the design. Note that a micro SD card is not included. Since we're on the topic of memory cards, there is something important I must warn you about. Their website says it supports micro SD cards from 8GB to 64GB, which I found odd at first, because normally the cutoff for most older or cheaper devices is SDHC 32GB, at least to my limited knowledge. In my testing, a SanDisk brand micro SD XC 64GB card would not work, as the NVG30 failed to recognize the card as valid memory, but two SanDisk brand 32GB micro SD cards immediately worked and recorded on the first try. I'm not the CEO of SD cards, but I hope SanDisk, one of the original designers of the SD card specification itself, are able to make an SD card properly. And they did. The Nightfox Prowl recognizes and can use the 64GB card just fine. The reason the NVG30 could not read 64GB is because the device is likely actually using the SDHC standard host, which is limited to 32GB, versus the newer SDXC standard that allows for the use of cards over 32GB. So keep in mind that the maximum capacity micro SD card you can use in this device is actually 32GB, not 64GB. With these devices, especially new releases, it is important to always verify the function of the device before using them in the field. In this case, even the manufacturer's own specifications couldn't be trusted. Before stepping out into the unknown, make sure your equipment is known, whether that be limitations or capabilities. Getting back to the included accessories, the device includes an 18650 battery, a Litokala Li100B charger, and a USB-C cable, which can be used to transfer files to your computer or charge the NVG30 at a computer. There is also a semi-adequately translated manual, which is handy but has information that may not be correct. The included mount is only compatible with the NVG shroud on a helmet. In order to get the full experience with hands-free wearing, you need to purchase a helmet that has an NVG shroud installed. Binock's website and its corresponding AliExpress listing does not offer this included with the device, but one California-based retailer does offer a helmet package for $50 more. The problem with the included mount is that the only thing keeping it on the helmet is the tab, which locks into the bottom notch of the shroud. This would not normally be a problem, as this is how every other interface attaches, but this interface does not have a detent. The lack of detent leads to the bigger issue, which is that the force required to unlock the mount is greatly reduced. This makes the included mount easier to put on, but it also makes it easier to come off, especially when the release button is not shielded by other controls, like on this G24 clone mount. So, if the mount is lightly bumped on this unprotected button here, your NVG30 will release itself and fall to the ground. This is suboptimal. So, for this NVG30, I needed a reliable way to mount it, and ended up buying this 3D printed NVG10/NVG30 G24 mount from Etsy. This allows you to attach your NVG30 more conventionally to mounts that lock securely to the NVG shroud and have better adjustability. Unlike the included arm, this mount is made of plastic, so bear that in mind if you might bump into something or drop your helmet. The bad news is this mounting surface is low friction plastic to plastic, so there's just about no retention keeping it from coming loose. So if you're running around, the screw could become loose and then your NVG30 will start rotating at the worst time. And if you tighten that screw too much, you'll damage the slot and the screw socket itself, which will destroy its function as a mounting interface. I addressed this by using the rubber washers that come with a camera thumb screw, which is yet another third-party purchase. By tightening it an okay amount, you can see it feels good, and the amount of force needed to make it rotate is greatly increased. And the amount you have to turn the screw is decreased, preventing stress on the slot. All in all, I would say that the way the NVG30 mounts to helmets is not satisfactory, especially because there is no other way to wear it hands-free. The 3D printed adapter has to be attached to this block, which the block has to be screwed onto the NVG30 using this 6-hole screw pattern. This 6-hole screw pattern could be forward-thinking from Binock in a way, because it could be used as a basis for a modular plate system where you can just unscrew the G24 dovetail and then screw in a block which is fitted to any mounting interface you want. This saves everyone the hassle of having to redesign the entire housing to fit a small exterior change. You can see this in the way Glock does their modular optics system, where instead of having an entire slide having to be recut for every single red dot pattern out there, you can just have a bunch of uniform plates that slide on and are screwed in. You can see this in photography as well, where the standard 1/4 20-tap tripod screw interface allows for other mounts to be used, such as the Manfrotto RC2 or ARCA. Unfortunately, the way Binock executed the 6-hole pattern is frustrating to use, and it'll make you wonder why they couldn't just there be a 1/4 20 thread with an anti-rotation socket there in the first place. This is just one of several missed opportunities, but we'll get to those later. So, knowing this, a side effect of using the Etsy mount is that the soft 3D printed plastic allowed me to tap the socket for 1/4 20 tripod screw, which meant that I could attach a Manfrotto RC2 plate. As you might remember from the Prowl review, this plate allows me to mount the device in a way that can be easily recorded. You can also use a ARCA Swiss type plate, and if your top rail is Picatinny, you could then use a Picatinny clamp with ARCA on top of it, and then ARCA clamp onto your NVG30 to make a weapon optics of sorts. Note that again, these are aftermarket parts and are not included with the NVG30. Also note that this process is irreversible. By tapping into the included tripod screw, the socket is forever enlarged, so you can't secure the NVG30 with the included Etsy screws anymore. Note that when the NVG30 is mounted to a tripod like this, the NVG30 is upside down. You can flip the video right side up in most video editors, but then the HUD elements are upside down. For the purposes of this presentation, any video that you see from the NVG30 that appears stable has been edited from its original. It has been flipped. But otherwise I left the contrast and the grading alone. I would like to remind you that the entire last section was just to find solutions for the things the Nightfox Prowl can immediately do outside of the box. One thing to note, I did notice some discrepancy regarding dual mounting them. Binock's English website shows a flipped NVG30 where the battery compartment is on the left and the buttons are on the right, opposed to this device where the buttons are on the left and the battery on the right. However, one of California-based retailers' 2 YouTube channels has a video that doesn't show the flipped unit, only 2 left button units. His website also shows the standard version as well. I don't know if this flipped version actually exists or if it's simply an edited image made before production. Take that as you will. A possibly third-party dual bridge mount itself is available from that US retailer store, but only as part of 2 plus $1,000 packages, with a second standard unit and optionally a helmet. Though, at the time of this recording, his website said the dual bridge mount would be available mid-March 2024, which leads me to believe Binock is not involved in this mysterious bridge mount at all. Unlike the NVG10, there is no option to buy this bridge separately. And unlike the NVG10, this NVG30 bridge seems to be styled after the Etsy design, but made of aluminum with better anti-rotation features. The single low light picture he gave us and the approximately combined 18 seconds of screen time gives us very little information. But the bridge seems similar to the commonly available 3D dual bridge brackets available from most places for around $25, except this one comes with a G24 dovetail and adds approximately $100 to the combined total cost of the dual unit assembly. Because I did not want to buy a second unit or helmet, I cannot review this item for you. I would like to remind you that Nightfox not only includes their G24 adapter, but the bridge mount was only $16 and sold separately as a single item. Anyway, long story short, since the official path to hands-free wearing is not optimal or non-existent, you must resort to aftermarket solutions to have a semi-usable configuration, as the items included from the factory are unacceptable. If you don't mind, I will go on a bit of a tangent here about the state of the industry. You may skip this by using the timestamp in the description. Digital night vision is not a new field, but devices that have performance worth your hard-earned money are relatively new. For the first-time NVG Explorer, we need more companies in the industry willing to go the extra mile in giving us night vision newbies the items they need to use them. Being able to just open a box and have some fun or utility out of a unit is very important for these users, as they may not want to go hiking or night fishing with a helmet or pay $240 more for a Cry nightcap setup. On top of that, the official website needs to sell replacement accessories like the mounting systems, as people may prefer or want to use a bridge mount without paying $1,050. Unfortunately, unlike Nightfox, Binock does not seem to be bothered very much by these usability concerns. If you intend on using this unit solely as a handheld unit, there are in fact new usability obstacles. I'll get back on this later. Once you have everything powered and ready to go, the operation is simpler than the Prowl. With only 3 buttons, it uses a series of taps and holds. Tap the closest button, button 1, to power on. Tap it again to start or stop recording. Hold the closest button to power off. Pretty easy. You tap the middle button to cycle through some color modes. The NVG30 will remember which color mode you're in. I think the most relevant is the normal color mode. You hold the middle button, button 2, to turn on the built-in IR emitter. Now, when the built-in IR emitter is on, you cannot change color modes. Instead, tap the middle button to cycle through the IR emitter power level. Hold the middle button to turn off the emitter. When turning on the NVG30, the emitter will always start in the off mode. The built-in IR flashlight is great for lighting up the environment with light invisible to the naked eye, such as if you want to observe certain animals and pets without disturbing them. But remember, it's still a flashlight, so when using any IR illumination, other night vision users can also see the light, and more importantly, the IR emitter itself is visible from quite a distance. Tap the furthest button, we can call this button 3 for today, to cycle through digital zoom modes. It goes up to 4x zoom. One of the things I usually do when doing photography and manual zoom is to zoom in as much as I can, dial in the focus, and zoom out if needed. It's a lot easier to adjust the focus when a particular edge is blown up. Hold this furthest button to enter the menus. This is where it gets a bit strange. To exit the menu, hold button 3. Tap 2 to go down. Tap 3 to go up. Tap 1 to select an option. Most of these menus are pretty explanatory, but there are a few interesting options. The crosshair is mainly useful for aligning the device with an optic if you somehow mount it to a Picatinny rail. Picture-in-picture mode puts a blown-up version of the center in the middle of the screen, and this also allows you to use 5x zoom. This is great if you want to ensure your image is in focus without disturbing a recorded video, as the secondary picture screen is not saved onto recordings. If using the zoom function while recording without using picture-in-picture mode, the recorded video itself is zoomed in. Having this picture-in-picture mode improves its ability to be used as a low-light camera. There are brightness settings as well as auto brightness. The NVG30 remembers what brightness you left it at, unlike the Nightfox Prowl. The gyroscope calibration is used to set the compass. The built-in compass is a feature that was originally introduced in the NVG10 and is a convenient way to call out a general direction, such as you might want to do in airsoft. You might be familiar with this concept from tactical shooter games such as Arma, Project Reality, or more recently, Helldivers 2.
215 left, 200 meters, enemy boat spotted.
I would not expect accuracy from this compass to be good enough to actually navigate using a map, but having a cardinal direction or 90 degrees direction is much better than nothing, and it is nice that they included this feature. The built-in clock is convenient as well, as it allows you to keep track of the time without having to look at a backlit watch or phone. As you might expect, the HUD also allows you to keep track of the date, but when entering the date, the up and down arrows only change the currently selected digit. If you type anything incorrectly, you have to cycle forward through all of the values until you are editing the one you messed up. The good news is, assuming that you don't completely run out of battery, you only have to do it once. The bad news is that it's tedious and you probably won't want to do it again. As a funny side effect, you can tell who actually read the manual of their NVG30 if the time and date are set, because it is completely confusing without instructions. Their website mentions a feature to auto-sync the time from your mobile phone so that you don't have to manually go through the numbers, but I cannot find that feature on the NVG30. Additionally, there is supposed to be a Wi-Fi feature used to transfer media or short-range turn your phone into a delayed video feed with a mobile device. At least that's what the manual says. Like the NVG10, this feature is actually completely unsupported by Binock, the NVG30 manufacturer. You actually have to use a dash camera app to jailbreak the NVG30 to transmit to your phone, and to my knowledge, this device has been completely broken with newer versions of these apps. Yes, I watched one of those 2 videos from one of that California retailer's 2 YouTube channels, one of them being on Shorts, and his video was cut too quick to show the entire process. But I also noticed on his video the menu icons were on the bottom of the screen instead of this list we see on mine. Also, at the end of one of those 2 videos, you can see he shows the version, which reveals an earlier firmware date from November 20th. Anyway, while the NVG30 does fix this issue by allowing you to record on a microSD card instead, I can't help but think that they could have saved the end user some money by not including this essentially useless Wi-Fi chip. In addition, for some airsoft players in particular situations, the electronic emissions of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or other wireless technologies may be unacceptable. I do not have a radio direction finder, so I cannot say if this Wi-Fi chip searches for a host, even though there would be no way to connect to it. But that may be problematic for you. And now, for the part most people care about, answering the question of what is it like to look through the device, and how does it compare to the digital night vision of similar price, such as the Nightfox Prowl. While panning around trees and range videos of your friends at completely unknown distances is the quietly accepted norm of DNV demonstrations, we at Tactical Taco believe you deserve more, better data. While some of you do in fact live in the rural forests or fields where traditional tubes such as the PVS-14 will outperform DNV, almost all of the viewers of this video live in a major city or neighborhood with mixed lighting. While you may train for airsoft night battles way out in the sticks, where you live, where you work, and resupply are relevant places to consider in the event you enter a surprise PvP airsoft match. Therefore, we need just a little bit more than look at this street and these buildings over there. We need what would a human look like at this distance. How does it do in extreme lighting contrast? Can I look across the street into shadows? So on this channel, we will use a standard shown in our first review, which are 3 main situations: driving, walking, and aiming. We've selected these scenarios based on the ways you might use a digital night vision device, which differ from analog night vision because they occur in places where there's too much light to safely use these devices regularly, yet have areas where it's too dark or too high contrast to use your natural night vision. In these areas, your natural night vision is worse than an action camera. And those of you familiar with GoPros know how poorly these action cameras perform in low light. In the first test, we show an example scene of what it would look like if you were riding in a vehicle towards a specific destination, or perhaps you choose to exit your vehicle for some reason at a specific location. As you can see, the NVG30 has some of the more impressive color rendering of the sample cameras shown here. Compared to the Aurora, it does not handle overexposed lights as well. And around the edges of the video, you can see it has some sort of blur going on, like a fisheye effect. We'll discuss this in greater detail later. But with well-lit areas, like grass under street lamps, you can see that, at least near the center of the video, the NVG30 has some of the best looking grass at night of these cameras, easily beating the Nightfox Prowl's soft picture, the Psyonix Aurora's weird JPEG dithering noise and the X3000's dark output. The second test relates to how identifying a target would look like at varying distances up to 100 feet. We selected 100 feet, or approximately 33 yards, because that is the average distance from a front window to across the street, which is a useful metric for the maximum distance you might be expected to respond to an unexpected 3 a.m. airsoft situation. While this simplified test doesn't account for dynamic movements such as running, sprinting, using cover, concealment, proning, etc., it is a good baseline for assessing the ability to identify a person, and is easily repeatable by you as a viewer in the areas around your home. In these videos, you'll see me retrieve my Phoenix CL30R lantern, which I use to measure 100 feet using the map pin function in Google Maps. I do crouch in some of these videos, which is a more challenging target identification test at 100 feet. When it comes to this particular footage, you can see the NVG30 at its limit, where it shifts between the shadows into a blue or purple color, which can make the contrast between subject and background harder. But otherwise, a stationary NVG30 can see a stationary human at 100 feet. The NVG30 image has quite a lot of signal noise in this challenging high contrast test, even more so than the Aurora. However, the $250 Nightfox Prowl, while being a device at half the cost and using its sensor that is half the resolution, continues to have a clear image. This is the true strength of the sensor display resolution ratio that we mentioned in the Prowl's review. As you can see, even against another device that has a 2-to-1 ratio, or against Aurora Pro, which uses the high-spin Sonic sensor and, on paper, should vastly outperform the Prowl, the Nightfox Prowl continues to outperform these devices using its 3-to-1 sensor to display resolution ratio. As mentioned earlier, the color display may be impacting the contrast of the NVG30, and I'm sure some people might say, hey, wait a minute, the NVG30 has other color filters such as black and white. Could that improve the image quality and make it on par with the Prowl? Maybe it might, but I will let you decide on that. The third and final test of the so-called tactical taco testing standard for DNV is aiming an airsoft gun. Because of the nature of an unexpected 3 a.m. airsoft match, you may not have the time to change the objective focus of your DNV. And this is why we have all these devices set to the standard far focus, as the traditional analog devices are set for. For this test, we have placed a Sony AX53 camcorder behind the device itself, because if you have to use the device in this manner, what matters is what you see in the viewfinder, not the video file that records on the microSD card. This is a true representation of what it is like to view the night through the NVG30. The airsoft pistol I have chosen for this test has both fiber optic iron sights and a Shield RMS red dot, which I have intentionally not upgraded to represent the worst case scenario of using a red dot with a night vision device. As you can see, the NVG30 is incapable of seeing iron sights like the Nightfox Prowl, but the NVG30 can at least make out the frame of the red dot, which makes acquiring the dot itself a lot easier. Let's see how the NVG30 did. Driving tests? Generally good. Walking tests? Not bad, but also not good. Aiming tests? Usable, but somewhat mediocre. We do have one last test for you. It was done last minute and some fine-tuning of the procedure is needed, but we do want to share the results. It is an attempt at ranking the sharpness of the NVG30 at 18 feet, with and without a 0.8 lumen flashlight. The first two were filmed facing northwest on March 10th. Due to user error, the NVG30 was filmed the next night, March 11th. So it's not purely scientific, but it does give us some interesting data. Let's take a look at that data. Good evening. Today is March 10. It's a new moon. What I have behind me, which you probably can't see, is a target set at 18 feet. We're going to see how some of these night visions do. Let's get started. Okay, so that's with no light, and then this is with the light. Oh, that's a difference. It's off, and now it's on. Now it's on target. So this is on target. Let me zoom out all the way, and then this is the true view zoomed out all the way. Next, I will now digital zoom on the NVG30. 3, 4. It is now 4x zoom. This is the target, how it appears, no light. Now I'm going to put on the quark, 4.7's quark at, I think, 0.8 lumens. So we are now keying the target at 0.8 lumens. 4x digital zoom. So on target, off target. Okay, so light is on target. Light is now off target. Light is on target. Light is off target. Light is on target. I will now attempt to zoom in more. This has been NVG30 POV via Sony AX53. So in short, here is how the devices perform without the light. And here is how they perform with the light. As for which one did the best, I can only let you decide. You probably have more questions about the methodology, and I trust you all have some ideas on what can be done better. Go ahead and pitch those in the comment section. We're always open to suggestions. Anyways, so what are my thoughts on this, the NVG30, the successor to the NVG10? I cannot recommend the NVG30 for the audience that my testing standard is intended for. To fully understand why I said this, we have to step back to the purpose of buying this type of device, because the context of how you use the device will determine whether or not the NVG30 is right for you. If your purpose is to use it as a low light camera for night filming, such as filming a music concert or theater in an intentionally dark venue, or you just want some footage of the stars or your late night vacation, this device will work acceptably for you. The footage it takes is unquestionably good. The fidelity of the color is better than even the Psionics Aurora. And if you can throw this on a tripod, it would make an ideal low light camera, especially because its battery life is 6 hours instead of the 40 minutes for the Aurora. Just look how crisp that grass is. Note that, as I previously mentioned, the NVG30 does not exactly make it easy to put on a tripod. However, I assume you are here because you are looking for a head-mountable digital night vision device. The deal breaker here is the view through the device. Thankfully, not all other reviewers ignore this, as the viewing experience is important. But in trying to demonstrate it while juggling a mobile phone, there is a really big caveat that is left behind. In this demonstration, I put the camcorder on a tripod and the NVG30 on a rail to move it side to side. What you can see is that the NVG30 has fisheye. That isn't just bad, it is probably worse than looking through an actual fishbowl. The sweet spot of the clear image is only a few degrees, and the rest of the viewing angles look absolutely awful. If this were mounted on a helmet, this effect would be even worse, because night vision also bounces up and down and in intermediate angles as you move, and I can confirm it is physically nauseating to look through when mounted to your head while moving. This has nothing to do with the NVG30's latency or lag. Though this latency test was filmed during the day, the low light latency or lag is nearly non-existent, and it is actually noticeably better than the Prowl due to its slightly higher 40 FPS setting. The image itself is just physically distorted by the poor quality lenses. Remember, the NVG30 does not exist in a vacuum like the NVG10 did for 6 years. Other options exist now, sometimes for a little bit more or sometimes for less. In my experience, the first time someone sees through any night vision device for the first time, they'll probably go through variations of, "Oh wow, look at that," and due to the enhanced capability to see at night and not consider the negative aspect of the device until later. In this case, some viewers will go, "Well, the full-scale video files recorded on the device look better than the NVG10, so I guess it's good." While it is true the NVG30 is objectively better than the NVG10 in all aspects, ranging from the resolving power at distance, the full color night vision, the way the device is laid out, the frame rate consistency and latency, the 1080p display resolution, and the ability to record to an SD card. This is the case even considering its lens distortion and flawed mount design it inherited from the NVG10. And that is why it is so annoying I cannot recommend it. Because while it is better than the NVG10 in all of those ways, you, as the user, cannot leverage them due to the lens distortion. The lens distortion is so bad that I would say the NVG30 is more like an NVG10 version 1.5. Because even though the sensor is 2K, the distortion makes it so that all the details are destroyed by the time the image in your viewfinder reaches your eye. It is a slightly better NVG10 to someone using it, but I don't think that justifies the 50% increase in cost. For example, take a look at this Nightfox Prowl footage through the viewfinder. Notice how clean the lines are. Notice how much you can see. Notice on the Prowl, when the camera is centered on the -2 on the right, you can see just about everything fine. But on the NVG30, when we looked at that same -2 on the right, it looks like a dream or flashback scene you'd see in some movie. When used in a stationary manner, which the NVG30 does not make easy, the image quality is great. But in a more dynamic environment, we want a device that doesn't force us to tape the device to our heads to keep it in the sweet spot so we don't throw up when using our digital night vision. If it's all you have, then as anything, you can make it work. But we have other objectively better choices for head-mounted digital night vision for at or under $500. I would say that even though the Aurora Sport will cost about $600 to configure into a head-mountable setup, that is vastly superior to the NVG30, even with its abysmal battery life that requires a power pack. Before I get into my final thoughts, I will bring up two final points regarding using the NVG30 purely as a video camera. You probably noticed some of the previous footage was misplaced. Two reasonable questions are, where is the NVG30 video in the last walk segment? And how come the airsoft depth of field test was filmed separately? The reason is because the NVG30's recording software froze. The walk and airsoft depth of field tests were filmed on the same night. During the last walk sequence and the first airsoft depth of field tests, the camera started exhibiting some glitches, like a record clock not showing up. The worst happened during an IR light test where the camera became completely unresponsive to button inputs. Most of the buttons, like digital zoom and menus, did not work, but powering down did work. When we returned, I noticed the resulting files were glitched and missing entire segments. To note, the settings for the device were the same as the driving test, where it recorded the driving test with no issues. The same 32GB microSD card was used as well, so we didn't change anything. The ability to record not functioning properly is something I will leave up to your use case. If you only care about the low light viewing aspect and have no use for recording a video, then you should have an adequate time. If you anticipate needing to record video practically, socially, or just for entertainment, you will have to take note we did have multiple software failures. Was it the last software failure? For your sake, if you buy this device, I hope it never fails for you. But, as your dad might have told you, if something fails sometimes, it won't work all the time. The second point is, even if you accept all the flaws and want to salvage the NVG30 as a sort of stationary tripod video camera for low light venues, music concerts, theater, etc., if your NVG30 does not suffer from the sometimes doesn't record video bug, it will always suffer from the audio quality is unusable bug. Though this time it's not entirely the fault of Binock. The waterproof camera microphone phenomena is nothing new. Anyone who has used a GoPro for videos while it's inside its waterproof case should know this by now. But the end result is that the audio for the NVG30 is bad. Really bad. It can't even record your voice if it's right in front of your mouth. Just watch this video where I try to record my voice. This is the sound recorded from the Nightfox Prowl. What you're now listening to is the sound from this, the Nikon D5000. The Nikon D5000 is Nikon's second DSLR to shoot video, after the Nikon D90, which is the first DSLR to shoot video. Like any onboard microphone, the standard way around this is to use another microphone and potentially a digital voice recorder. How to sync a video and a separate MP3 or WAV file of you talking is a topic well covered already, so I won't explore it here. But just note that the NVG30 is completely incapable of actually recording audio despite having a microphone. In the end, annoying sums up my thoughts on the NVG30. They were so close. Multiple complaints we had with the Nightfox Prowl's physical layout were resolved with this device, such as the battery compartment and SD USB port sealed, illuminator presence, brightness setting, memory. The color shading in low light is the best I've seen in any digital night vision device we've tested, including the famous Psyonix Aurora Pro. The minimalist 3 buttons can be weird, but in actual use, pose no usability concerns. The mounting interface is unacceptable, but can be made passable with aftermarket items. The 1080p display resolution of the electronic viewfinder looks great and makes the Prowl look outdated in comparison. Also, the battery life has been improved several times over compared to the NVG10. Even the delay between frames on the NVG30 is superior to the Nightfox Prowl, as you can see in this footage where I measured the time between frames of the AX53 camcorder by itself and then the frames through the devices. Everything was going so well. On paper, the NVG30 should be the better Nightfox Prowl. Instead, we got the alternative Psyonix Aurora. The files you record will be among the greatest low-light videos you will take for this budget, but every time you look into an NVG30, your eyes will start hurting from the squinting you'll need to do to compensate for the fisheye. Trying to walk around with it will make you want to throw up. Now, I'm sure some people can get used to the distortion, but it begs the question of why we have to deal with it in the first place when the $250 Prowls lenses are perfect. Binock, give us a better lens. I don't want an NVG30 that's only good for those immune to distortion. I want an NVG30 that's good for everyone. I want an NVG30 I can actually recommend for the tasks it was designed to do. We just need Binock to release an NVG30 A2 or something with both lenses resolved of the distortion issue. Or, if not, at least let us replace the lenses with better lenses from a different device. If they fix the lens and software, I might retire my Prowl. But until then, if Binock looks forward to remaining competitive on the $500 market, these issues will have to be addressed. With how fast DNV changed in just over the last year, and will change over the coming years, if Binock doesn't make this device better, someone else will. And when that device comes out and it's better, faster, and cheaper, the NVG30 will go the way of the NVG10. I predict a new generation of NV users are approaching, and unlike the previous generation who had to deal with the monopoly, the next wave refuses to settle for outdated and overpriced gear for one simple reason. They can now achieve the same outcome for less money. You can already see this in digital, where depending on when Hoplite Industries tweets, the Psyonix option may quietly go down in price. You can also see this in the accessories market, where some retailers were caught off guard and largely unprepared to be placed in a situation where they now have to defend the existence of their stock of Wilcox Industries G24 mounts. Though the next generation will not have the patience to settle for overpriced third-place goods, they will come to you, as long as your device can deliver for its price. Binock does have a clear path to success for this device. We can only hope that they can adapt quickly enough to the growing needs of the digital NV market, though. Until next time, thank you for watching the NVG30 review. And thank you to DD35/NATOMarksman for making this review possible. And join me next time for when I cover the Hoplite Industries DNV9, the faded digital night vision specifically designed to disrupt the entry-level PVS-14 market. In fact, you're looking through a DNV9 right now.